The war had been going on for 3 long years. Humans fought against the Krell, a race of giant alien warriors who stood 9 feet tall. The Krell had black armor-like skin and claws that could cut through metal. They were hunters from a deadly planet, and they wanted to take human colonies for themselves. Captain Jake Morrison was in charge of a small group of soldiers on a moon called Epsilon 7. His team had been fighting here for 6 weeks without rest. Every day the Krell attacked, and every day more soldiers died. The humans were running out of supplies and hope. Jake's second in command was Lieutenant Amy Chen, a smart woman who kept finding ways to keep them alive. Sergeant Leo Grant handled the big guns, and Corporal Nina Hayes kept their communications working, even when the Krell tried to jam their signals. The morning battle had been the worst one yet. The Krell came at dawn with hundreds of warriors. They broke through the outer walls and pushed deep into the human base. Jake and his soldiers fought them back step by step. The fighting went on for hours. Bodies fell on both sides. The smell of smoke and blood filled the air. When night finally came, the Krell pulled back to their own lines. Jake walked through the destroyed buildings, looking for any soldiers who might still be alive. The eastern barracks had collapsed during the fighting. Dead bodies lay everywhere, both human and alien. He was checking behind a fallen wall when he heard something strange. It was a small crying sound like a hurt animal. Jake followed the sound to where a large Krell warrior lay dead under heavy debris. The warrior's body was torn and broken, but under its massive arm, Jake saw something he had never seen before. It was a small Krell, only 3 feet tall. Its armor plates were soft and gray instead of the hard black of adult Krell. This was a child. The small Krell was badly hurt. One of its legs was bent wrong and it was making weak crying sounds. When it saw Jake coming closer, it tried to hiss and show its tiny fangs. But the sound was more scared than dangerous. Its big golden eyes were full of pain and fear. Jake stopped and stared. Why was there a child on the battlefield? Did the Krell bring their young to war? Or did this little one sneak onto a transport ship without anyone knowing? Jake felt his heart break a little. This was just a scared kid, hurt and alone. "Amy, come here," Jake called out. "You need to see this." Lieutenant Chen came running over. Her face was dirty with ash and blood from the battle. When she saw the small Krell, she stopped and stared with wide eyes. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked quietly. "A child," Jake said. "They brought a child to the battlefield." The small Krell cried out again, a sound full of pain. Jake made a choice in that moment. He knew it might be the wrong choice. He knew his commanders might punish him for it, but he could not leave a hurt child to die alone. Jake reached down slowly. The little Krell tried to snap at his hands but was too weak to really fight. Very carefully, Jake lifted the small alien in his arms. The child was heavier than it looked, but still light enough to carry. The moment Jake picked it up, the small Krell started to wail. The sound was high and loud, cutting through the night air. Every soldier in the base turned to look. Guns came up, pointing at Jake and the small alien he carried. The soldiers had been trained to kill Krell on sight. Now their captain was holding one like a baby. "Stand down," Jake ordered in a voice that demanded obedience. "It's a hurt child. We don't kill children. Leo, get the medics. I don't care what it is. We save it." "Sir, that thing will grow up to kill humans," one soldier said angrily. Jake looked the man in the eyes. "Maybe. But today it's just a scared kid with a broken leg. Today we choose to be better than this war." He walked toward the medical building, carrying the crying alien. His soldiers watched in shock. Some looked angry. Others looked confused. But no one tried to stop him. The small Krell's cries got louder as Jake walked. The sound traveled far across the rocky ground, out past the walls, into the dark lands where the Krell army waited. And in that darkness, something heard the cries. Adult Krell warriors, hundreds of them, heard one of their young crying in pain from inside the human base. Jake reached the medical building and pushed through the doors. Dr. Helen Brooks nearly dropped her tools when she saw what he was carrying. "Captain, what are you doing?" she asked in shock. "Saving a life," Jake said simply. He laid the small Krell on a table as gently as he could. The child stopped wailing, and started making softer clicking sounds. It looked around at all the strange human faces with frightened eyes. Helen moved closer, her doctor training taking over. I know Krell bodies from treating combat wounds, but I've never treated a child. Their medicine might not work on our drugs. Do what you can, Jake told her. Use whatever is safe. Fix its leg. Keep it alive. Amy pulled Jake to the side while Helen started examining the small Krell. Sir, we need to talk. Command will not like this. Half our own people are upset about it. 3 soldiers already asked to leave this base because of what you're doing. Noted, Jake said. What else? Amy's voice dropped to a whisper. The Krell have stopped attacking. No scouts, no probes, nothing. They've gone completely quiet. That's not normal for them. Jake looked back at the small alien on the table. A nurse was helping Helen put a splint on the broken leg. The child watched them with those big golden eyes. They know, Jake said quietly. They know we have one of their children. They're watching to see what we'll do with it. Then they'll attack, Amy said. They'll hit us with everything to get it back. Maybe, Jake agreed. Or maybe they're waiting to see if we'll hurt it. Maybe they're wondering if we're different than they thought. Over the next 2 days, something strange happened. The Krell army pulled back about half a mile from the human base. They did not attack. They did not send scouts. They just sat there, watching and waiting. It was like they were holding their breath. The small Krell, which Helen started calling Spike because of the small ridges growing on its back, began to heal. The broken leg was getting better, though it would always have a small limp. Spike stopped crying and started watching the humans with curious eyes. The child seemed especially interested in Jake, following him with its gaze whenever he came to visit. On the 3rd night, sensors picked up movement at the base gates. One Krell warrior was walking toward them. Just one, alone and unarmed. This had never happened before. The Krell always attacked in groups, always with weapons ready. Sir, we have a visitor, Leo said, his guns aimed at the approaching alien. Jake went to the gate, staying behind cover but where he could be seen. The Krell warrior was huge, even bigger than most of its kind. Old scars covered its armor plates, and it wore ribbons that looked like medals across its chest. This was clearly an important warrior, maybe even a leader. The warrior stopped at the gate. Then it did something that shocked every human watching. It knelt down on one knee. It put both of its clawed hands on the ground in front of it. This giant predator, this deadly warrior, was bowing in submission. It's asking for something, Amy whispered. Or maybe offering something. Jake made a choice. He stepped out from behind the protective barrier and walked toward the gate. Amy tried to stop him, but he kept going. He walked right up to the kneeling Krell with only the gate between them. Up close, Jake could see intelligence in the alien's eyes, but he also saw something else. He saw the same look he had seen in the eyes of human parents when their children were in danger. This warrior was desperate. The Krell made a soft sound, almost like a question. Then slowly it reached behind itself and pulled out a small container. It pushed this container forward on the ground. Jake carefully picked it up. Inside was a thick paste, amber-colored and slightly glowing. Helen, he called back, come look at this. The doctor examined the container through the gate. Her eyes went wide. It's medicine, or maybe food. I would need to test it, but the chemical readings suggest it's made for young Krell bodies. The warrior was still kneeling, still waiting. Jake understood now. This was Spike's parent. This warrior had come alone and unarmed, hoping the humans would help its child. Jake opened the gate just enough to step through. His soldiers shouted warnings, but Jake ignored them. He walked up to the kneeling Krell and held up the container. He pointed at it, then pointed back at the medical building where Spike was healing. He made a gesture like eating, bringing his hand to his mouth. The warrior's eyes widened. It understood. The human was saying the child would be fed. The child would be cared for. The warrior put one clawed hand over its chest in what might have been a gesture of respect or thanks. Then the Krell warrior stood up and walked backward, never taking its eyes off Jake until it disappeared into the darkness. Jake walked back to his shocked soldiers. They all stared at him like he had lost his mind. "Sir, what just happened?" Amy asked. "I think," Jake said slowly, "we just talked to the enemy for the first time. And I think that warrior might be Spike's parent. They're not just monsters. They're people who love their children just like we do." That night, as Jake lay in his bunk trying to sleep, he thought about the choice he had made. Picking up that hurt child had changed something. The war was not over. People would still die, but maybe, just maybe, they had found a way to start seeing each other as something other than enemies. In the medical, Part 2 word spread fast about what Captain Jake Morrison had done. Within 3 days, every human commander in the sector knew that he was keeping a Krell child alive at his base. Some called him a hero. Others called him a traitor. The arguments got so heated that Admiral Patricia Ross herself came to Epsilon 7 to see what was happening. Admiral Ross was a hard woman who had been fighting the Krell for all 3 years of the war. She had lost many good soldiers. She had ordered attacks that killed thousands. When she walked into Jake's office, her face was tight with controlled anger. "Captain Morrison, you could be charged with treason," she said coldly. "Helping the enemy, risking your entire base, all for one enemy alien, even if it is just a child." Jake stood at attention. "With respect, Admiral, I did what I thought was right. We found an injured child on a battlefield. I couldn't just leave it to die." "It's not a child, it's a Krell," Ross snapped. Then she paused and took a breath. Her face softened just a little, though I'm told it's small enough that child might be accurate. She sat down heavily in a chair, suddenly looking tired. "Jake, I've been fighting this war for 3 years. I've sent young people to die. I've ordered strikes on cities, but I never thought we were monsters." "Neither did I, ma'am," Jake said quietly. Ross pulled out a tablet and showed him a video. It was from satellites in orbit showing the Krell positions around Epsilon 7. "Look at this. They've pulled back their heavy weapons. Their attack groups have spread out. They're still here, but they're not preparing to attack. They're waiting. Waiting for what? For us to return the child, I think. Or to see if we're going to hurt it." Ross looked at him with hard eyes. "Command wants me to use this. Hold the child hostage. Force the Krell to negotiate. Maybe end the war with one simple bargaining chip. And what do you want, Admiral?" Ross was quiet for a long moment. "I want to stop sending people home in body bags. I want to find a way to end this war without killing every last Krell or getting ourselves destroyed trying." She stood up. "Keep the child alive, Captain. Keep it safe. Write down everything that happens. If there's even a small chance this could lead to peace, I need to know about it." In the medical building, something amazing was happening. Dr. Helen Brooks had been working with the amber medicine the Krell warrior had brought. After testing it carefully, she started giving small amounts to Spike. The child recovered much faster after that. But what really surprised everyone was how Spike behaved. The young Krell started making sounds that seemed like it was trying to copy human speech. Helen brought in Corporal Danny Price, who had been studying Krell sounds since the war started. Danny spent hours with Spike, playing recordings of both Krell and human language. The child listened carefully, its head tilting to the side like it was really thinking. On the 5th day, something incredible happened. Jake was visiting the medical bay when Spike looked right at him and made a sound that was clearly trying to be a human word. "Jack." Everyone in the room froze and stared. "Did it just say my name?" Jake asked in shock. Spike repeated the sound clearer this time. "Jake." "They can learn our language," Helen whispered in amazement. "Or at least this young one can. Maybe young Krell can learn any language. We just never tried to talk to them before." Danny knelt down next to the table where Spike sat. His eyes were bright with excitement. "Spike, can you understand me?" The child tilted its head, then slowly nodded. It had learned that gesture from watching humans. Understand. Over the next week, Spike learned words faster than anyone thought possible. The child was learning like human children do, listening to everything and copying it. More importantly, Spike started helping the humans understand Krell language. "We've been doing it all wrong," Danny explained to Jake excitedly. "The Krell don't have words like we do. Their language uses different pitches and lengths of sounds. The clicking noises between words carry meaning too. We've been hearing noise when they were trying to talk to us all along." With Spike's help, Danny started to figure out basic Krell communication. It was hard work, but they made progress quickly. They learned that the Krell word for battle and challenge were the same. They had no word for surrender. only phrases that meant pause before death or victory. Their name for themselves meant something like the people who endure. They also learned that the warrior who brought the medicine was named Kraldar, which meant stone that stands. Spike's real name was Krellick, or Small New Stone. 2 weeks after the first meeting, Jake stood at the base gate again. Kraldar had returned, but this time he brought 2 other Krell warriors with him. They carried weapons but held them, pointing down in a peaceful way. Danny stood next to Jake with a small speaker that could make Krell sounds. He played a sequence that Spike had taught them. It meant greeting with respect. All 3 Krell warriors' eyes went wide with surprise. Kraldar responded with a complex series of clicks and growls. Danny listened carefully, then checked his notes. He says he thanks us for caring for his child. He asks if Small New Stone still lives and is healthy. Jake nodded, then spoke while Danny translated through the speaker. Krellick heals well. The small one is brave and learns fast. More clicking sounds. Danny translated. He asks if we will give Small New Stone back when it is healed. Jake had been thinking about this question for days. He knew what the military command wanted. He knew what his duty said he should do, but he also knew what felt right in his heart. Tell him, Jake said slowly, that Krellick will be returned when it is fully healed and wants to leave. But also tell him this. Humans do not make war on children. We want to talk with the Krell people who endure. We want to find a way to stop the killing. Danny translated carefully. There was a long silence. Kraldar and the other warriors seemed to talk silently among themselves using small gestures. Then Kraldar spoke for a long time, his voice carrying many emotions. Danny's hands shook a little as he translated. He says the Krell believed humans were demons who killed for fun. They thought we were a disease that had to be removed from space. But demons don't heal hurt children. Demons don't learn to speak with respect. Danny paused to listen to more. He says that Kraldar will bring this message to the war leader. Maybe there is a path through the darkness that doesn't need more blood. The 3 Krell warriors each put a hand on their chest in that gesture of respect. Then they turned and walked away into the rocky land beyond the base. Amy stood next to Jake, watching them leave. Did we just end the war? No, Jake said quietly. But maybe we just started figuring out how to try. The news of the meeting spread through both armies like fire. Human commanders sent angry messages demanding answers. But something was also happening in the Krell forces that humans did not yet understand. The Krell war leader was named Karvek, which meant stone that crushes all. He was very old and covered in scars from hundreds of battles. When Kraldar told him what happened at the human base, the war leader refused to believe it at first. Humans do not show mercy, Karvek growled. They are soft flesh that kills from the sky. They poison worlds and run when we come to fight them properly. But Kraldar kept talking. I saw it with my own eyes, war leader. They healed Small New Stone. They learned our speech. The human leader called Jake Morrison talks about ending the killing. Karvek had fought humans for 3 long years. He had seen them bomb cities from space. He had watched them use weapons that melted stone. But he had never heard of them healing a Krell child. Never heard of them trying to communicate beyond simple demands. Call the Council of Stones, he finally ordered. If there is even the smallest chance this is true, we must think about it. We have lost too many warriors. Too many children grow up without parents. Even the people who endure can be destroyed if we choose battles unwisely. Back at the human base, Spike was growing stronger every day. The child's leg was almost fully healed, though it would always have a small limp. But more interesting than the physical healing was what was happening with Spike's mind. The young Krell was learning not just words, but ideas. Spike asked questions about everything. Why did humans build with metal instead of stone? Why did they eat cooked food? Why did they cover their soft bodies with clothes? And Spike told the humans things about Krell culture too. The warriors were not mindless killers. They valued strength because their home world tried to kill them every day. They fought because that was how they survived. But they also valued family, honored their elders, and protected their young fiercely. They're not that different from us, Helen said one evening while checking Spike's health. They're just people who grew up on a world that was always trying to kill them. They learned to be strong because anything less meant death. But they also learned to care for their children, Amy added, to protect the next generation. That's not different from what drives us. Jake visited Spike every day. The young Krell seemed to enjoy these visits, always greeting him with an excited chirp. One day Spike said something that made Jake stop and think. Why humans pick up hurt Krell child? Spike asked in halting English. Krell enemy. Could kill when grow up. Jake sat down so he was at eye level with the young alien. Because you were hurt and scared. Because you're a child who needed help. That mattered more than the war. Part 3. The Krell Council of Stones met in a great ship that orbited Epsilon 7. 7 massive warriors gathered, each one a legend among their people. They had each survived hundreds of battles and led thousands of warriors. These were the wisest and strongest of all Krell, and they would decide if peace was possible. Kraldar stood before them and told his story. He described everything he had seen at the human base. He played recordings of Danny's translated speech. He showed them video footage of Jake Morrison carrying Krellick to safety, while his own soldiers protested. One elder named Krellath leaned forward. He was ancient, his armor plates thick with age. This changes nothing. One act of unexpected mercy does not erase 3 years of war. The humans still occupy worlds that belong to the strong. But why do we claim them, elder? Asked a younger warrior named Karis. We fight because we have always fought. Because we believed humans were weak prey that dared to spread among the stars. But they are not prey. They are warriors who simply fight differently than we do. You speak of weakness, Kraldar said carefully, but I saw strength in the human leader's eyes. The strength to choose mercy when everything told him to kill. That is not the weakness of prey. That is the wisdom of a true leader. The debate went on for hours. Some council members wanted to continue the war. Others saw a chance for something better. Finally, war leader Karavek raised one massive claw and everyone went silent. There is a way to test this, he said in his deep voice. The humans say they want to talk. Very well. We will arrange a meeting, a proper challenge of words, as our ancestors once did before battle. If the humans can speak truth and show wisdom, maybe there is a path forward. If they show lies, he showed his sharp teeth, then we will destroy them as we should have from the beginning. At the human base, Admiral Ross had brought in a team for possible negotiations. She had diplomats, language experts, and military advisors. But when the Krell message came through, translated by Spike and Danny working together, it was clear who the Krell wanted to meet. The war leader Karavek will meet with the human leader Jake Morrison, who showed mercy to Small New Stone. Danny read from his notes. He will bring 7 warriors of the Council of Stones. The humans may bring 7 of their own. They will meet on the flat stone ground between the camps where everyone can see that no tricks are planned. Absolutely not, Ross said immediately. Jake, you're not trained for this. We have people whose job this is. With respect, Admiral, the Krell don't want your diplomats. They want to meet the man who picked up one of their children in the middle of a battle. Jake looked at her steadily. They want to see if that was a smart move or if it was real. Ross rubbed her face tiredly. Fine, but I choose your team. Amy goes with you for military advice. Danny for translation. Helen because they respect her for healing the child. Leo because we need someone who can shoot straight if this goes wrong. Who else? Jake asked. Spike, Ross said, surprising everyone. The child goes too. If they see that we've truly taken care of their young one, it will mean more than any words we can say. The meeting was set for 3 days later, at noon when both sides could see clearly. In those 3 days, Jake barely slept. He worked with Danny and Spike, learning every detail of Krell communication he could. He studied their history, what little humans knew of it. He tried to understand how a warrior culture that seemed to value only strength could also love their children so much. They're not that different from us, Helen said one night as she checked Spike's health one last time. The child was fully healed now, the limp barely noticeable. They're just people who grew up on a world that tried to kill them every day. They learned to be strong because anything less meant death. But they also learned to care for their young, Amy added, to protect the next generation. That's the same thing that drives us. The day of the meeting came with clear skies and cold air. Jake and his team walked out to the meeting place, a flat area of bare rock halfway between the 2 camps. Spike walked beside Jake, moving with confidence even though the child was surrounded by humans. From the Krell side, 8 figures walked toward them. 7 huge warriors, each one covered in scars and wearing marks of great rank, and Kraldar, easy to recognize even from far away. When the 2 groups met, there was a moment of tense silence. Krell and humans stood facing each other, 2 species that had been trying to kill each other for 3 years. Then Spike broke the silence with an excited chirp and ran toward Kraldar on its healed leg. The huge warrior caught the child up in his arms. For just a moment, the fierce predator was simply a parent reunited with their child. Kraldar made soft clicking sounds, checking Spike over carefully, running his claws gently over the leg that had been broken. Then he looked at Jake. Slowly and deliberately, he knelt down as he had that first night. All 7 members of the Council of Stones knelt with him. "You returned our child," Karvik said in slow but understandable English. Spike had been teaching them too. "You healed and cared for small new stone when you could have used it as a weapon against us. This is unexpected." Jake stayed standing, not as a sign of power but of respect. "We do not make war on children," he said simply, while Danny translated into more detailed Krell speech. "Your people and mine have killed each other for 3 years, but maybe it doesn't have to be that way forever." Karvik stood up and the others followed. "Speak then, human leader Jake Morrison. Tell us why the killing should stop. Convince the Council of Stones that peace is possible." Jake took a deep breath. This was it. Everything depended on what he said next. He started talking not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, but as someone who was tired of war and desperate to find another way. He spoke for hours under the cold sun of Epsilon 7. He talked about the cost of war, about young soldiers who would never go home, about cities destroyed and worlds scarred. He was honest about humanity's role in the fighting, admitting that both sides had done terrible things in the name of victory. But he also talked about what peace could bring. The Krell needed water and minerals. Those resources existed on dead worlds that humans had no use for. Humans needed safety and room to expand without constant threat. There were enough star systems for both species if they stopped trying to kill each other over every planet. "Your people call themselves the people who endure," Jake said, with Danny translating carefully. "My people see ourselves as survivors too. We came from a world that tried to kill us in 1,000 ways, and we survived by working together, by protecting our young, by choosing cooperation when we could." He pointed at Spike, who sat between the two groups, watching with intelligent golden eyes. "When I saw your child hurt, I didn't see an enemy. I saw a child who needed help, because that's what my people do at our best. We protect those who can't protect themselves." Krellith the Ancient made a deep rumbling sound. Danny translated carefully. "He says that humans are still weak, that you hide behind ships and bombs instead of facing your enemies with honor. Is it dishonorable to use the weapons you're best at?" Amy spoke up. "Your people are stronger, tougher, built for close fighting. Ours are smaller and more fragile, so we develop technology to even things out. That's not weakness. That's adaptation. That's endurance." Another council member, a scarred warrior named Carmack, spoke. "And what about trust? How do we know humans will honor any agreement? You could be gathering our leaders here to kill us all." "I could say the same," Jake replied. "You could kill all of us right now. But neither side has attacked because we both want something more than another battle." He paused. "Trust has to start somewhere. Someone has to choose to take the first step. When I picked up Krellick, that was my first step. Kraldar bringing medicine for the child, that was yours. Maybe this conversation is the third step." Karvik had been silent through most of the talking, listening carefully. Now he spoke, his voice carrying across the rocky ground. "The humans speak with wisdom. But wisdom alone does not end war. We need something more, something that ties us together, that makes breaking peace unthinkable." Helen stepped forward, surprising everyone. "Then let me suggest something. Small New Stone learned human speech in just 2 weeks. What if there were more like it? What if young Krell and young humans grew up together, learned together, came to see each other as people instead of enemies? It would take time, but it would create bonds that war could never break." Spike chirped excitedly and looked up at Kraldar. The child spoke in rapid Krell that Danny could barely follow, but the meaning was clear from Spike's enthusiasm. The young one had enjoyed its time with humans. It had learned so much. It wanted others to have the same experience. Kraldar looked down at his child with an expression that was clearly loving despite his alien features. Then he looked at Jake. "My child speaks truth. Small New Stone has learned more in these weeks than in many months before. If our young could learn from each other..." He trailed off, then spoke to the council in their own language. The argument that followed was heated. Some council members saw wisdom in building bridges between species. Others saw only weakness, making Krell soft with human ideas. But Karvik let them argue, let every voice be heard before finally calling for silence. The Council of Stones. Part for the first settlement began to take shape on Epsilon 7 in the following months. Human engineers worked alongside Krell laborers, each learning from the other. The Krell knew stone and structure better than any human. The humans had technology that the Krell had never imagined. Together, they built buildings that were both beautiful and nearly impossible to destroy. It was not easy work. The two species did not think the same way. Humans wanted to plan everything carefully before starting. Krell wanted to start building and adjust as they went. Arguments broke out daily. Sometimes tools were thrown, sometimes voices were raised. But somehow, slowly, they figured out how to work together. The first families started arriving after 3 months. These were the brave ones, the pioneers willing to risk everything for peace. Human children played carefully with Krell cubs at first, with parents watching closely, but gradually, as trust grew, the supervision relaxed. The children of both species learned faster than the adults. They did not carry the weight of 3 years of war. Teachers from both species worked together to create schools that honored both cultures while building understanding. Human teachers were amazed at how fast young Krell could learn physical skills. Krell teachers were surprised by how creative human children could be with problems. Each species had strengths the other lacked, but it was not all smooth progress. There were fights and misunderstandings. One day, a human teenager accidentally insulted a Krell elder by using the wrong tone of voice. The young human did not mean any harm, but in Krell culture, certain tones meant challenge or disrespect. It took hours of careful talking to calm things down. Another time, a Krell cub playing too roughly hurt a human child. The cub did not understand that human skin was softer, that human bones broke easier. The human parents were furious. The Krell parents were confused about why the humans were so upset over minor injuries. Again, it took patient explanation from people like Jake and Kraldar to prevent the incident from destroying the fragile peace. Spike, or Krellick as the Krell called the young one, became something like a celebrity in the settlement. The child moved easily between both species, translating not just words but culture. When human children were afraid of adult Krell warriors, Spike showed them that the fierce predators could be gentle. When Krell cubs thought humans were weak, Spike showed them the strength that came from clever thinking and working together. 1 year into the experiment, Jake stood on a hill overlooking the main settlement. Beside him, Kraldar looked at the same view. Below them, a mixed group of humans and Krell were building a new school. Human and Krell children ran around the worksite playing some game that neither species could have invented alone. "Did you ever imagine this?" Jake asked. "When we were trying to kill each other?" Kraldar made a thoughtful clicking sound. "No, I imagined only victory or death. There was no thought of this." He waved at the settlement. "But small new stone taught me something important. Sometimes the bravest thing a warrior can do is choose not to fight." "Your people taught me something too," Jake replied. "You showed us that being different doesn't have to mean being enemies, that even across the gap between species, we can find common ground if we're willing to look for it." The second settlement was built on a frozen moon in Krell space. The third was placed on a human colony world with vast oceans. Each faced unique challenges. On the frozen moon, humans struggled with the extreme cold while Krell found it comfortable. On the ocean world, Krell, who came from a dry planet, had to learn to live with water everywhere. But in each place, they found ways to make cooperation work. Trade routes opened between settlements. Scientists from both species worked together on problems that had seemed impossible before. Krell's strength combined with human technology created solutions neither could have found alone. There were setbacks too. 6 months into the trial, a group of extremist humans tried to bomb one of the settlements. They believed that peace with the Krell was betrayal. The bomb was discovered before it could go off, but the incident reminded everyone how fragile this peace was. On the Krell side, a war band that refused to accept peace attacked a transport carrying mixed families. 3 humans and 2 Krell died in the attack before security forces stopped the attackers. Both species mourned together at the funeral, and that shared grief somehow made the bond between them stronger. As the 2-year trial period approached its end, no one really needed to ask if it had worked. The proof was in every mixed neighborhood, every classroom where human and Krell students sat side by side, every friendship that had formed across species lines. But there were still those who doubted. High-ranking military officers on both sides questioned if peace could last. They pointed to the incidents, the fights, the cultural clashes. They argued that the settlements only worked because people chose to be there. What would happen when the species had to interact in less controlled situations? Admiral Ross called Jake to a meeting 2 weeks before the trial was set to end. She looked tired, older than she had 2 years ago. The formal treaty signing will happen on Epsilon 7, she told him, in the great hall that both species built together. Karvek and I will sign for our peoples, but everyone knows the real architects of peace are elsewhere. It wasn't just me, Jake protested. It was Amy, Helen, Danny, Leo. It was Kraldar and Spike. It was every person who chose to give peace a chance. Maybe, Ross agreed. But you made the first choice. When you picked up that hurt child, you started something that changed everything. She looked at him seriously. There will be people who never accept this peace. On both sides. People who see it as weakness or betrayal. You need to be ready for that. I know, Jake said quietly. But they'll have to face something they don't expect. A whole generation of young people, both human and Krell, who grew up together, who see each other as friends, as neighbors, as people. Those young ones won't easily go to war against each other. The day of the treaty signing arrived with clear weather and warm sun. The great hall on Epsilon 7 was packed with representatives from both species. Media from across human and Krell space recorded everything. This moment would be remembered forever one way or another. Karvek and Admiral Ross stood at the front, each with a pen ready to sign the treaty document. But before they signed, Karvek raised one massive hand for silence. Before we sign, he said in English that had improved greatly over 2 years, I want to say something. 2 years ago I believed humans were demons, soft creatures who killed from safety and ran from honor. I was ready to fight until every human was dead or every Krell fell. He paused. Then one human proved me wrong. Jake Morrison found my child hurt on a battlefield. He could have killed it. He could have used it as a weapon. Instead, he showed mercy. He chose kindness when everything said to choose violence. The war leader looked directly at Jake and the crowd. That choice saved both our species. It taught us that even in the darkest time of war, there is always a choice to be better. We honor that choice today by choosing peace. Admiral Ross spoke next. For 3 years, we fought a war that neither side could win. We lost good people. We did things we're not proud of. But we also learned something important. We learned that the Krell are not mindless monsters. They're people who love their children, honor their warriors, and value strength and loyalty. She smiled slightly. They're not that different from us. And if we could see that through the hatred and fear, we could see a path forward. Then, with cameras recording and witnesses from both species watching, the two leaders signed the treaty. The war was officially over. Peace had begun. Jake found Spike later that evening. The young Krell was now almost an adult, tall and strong but still with that limp from the old injury. Kraldar was there too, along with Amy, Helen, Danny, and Leo, the original team that had chosen mercy over revenge. We did it, Amy said quietly. We actually did it. No, Spike said in perfect English. You did it. You chose to see past the enemy and recognize a person, a child who needed help. That choice changed everything. The war could start again, Leo pointed out, always practical. There are still people on both sides who see this peace as weakness. There will always be those who prefer fighting to talking, Kraldar agreed. But they will face something they don't expect. Young ones, both human and Krell, who grew up together, who see each other as friends and allies. Those young ones will not easily go to war. Jake looked out over the settlement from where they stood. Lights were coming on in windows where families of both species lived. Children's laughter drifted up from the streets below. That universal sound of joy that needed no translation. I still remember that moment, Jake said softly. When I saw you hurt and I had to choose, kill you, leave you, or help you, in that second all I saw was a child who needed help. Nothing else mattered. That moment saved us all, Spike replied. It taught us that even in darkness there's still hope, still a choice to be better. The sun set on Epsilon 7, painting the sky in beautiful colors. In the settlement below, life went on. Human and Krell neighbors talked over fences. Mixed groups sat in cafes sharing meals and stories. Children played together in streets that had once run with blood. It had not been easy. It had not been quick. But from one moment of... Part 5, 20 years had passed since Jake Morrison picked up an injured Krell cub on a battlefield. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined back then. The 3 experimental settlements had grown into thriving cities. Dozens more mixed communities had been built on worlds throughout both human and Krell space. Trade between the two species had made both civilizations stronger. Human technology combined with Krell engineering created ships, buildings, and tools that neither could have made alone. Scientists from both species worked together, solving problems that had stopped each civilization for decades. The generation that had grown up during the war was now middle-aged. They remembered the fighting, the fear, the hatred. But their children and grandchildren knew only peace. For young people of both species, having friends from the other side was normal. Mixed marriages had even started to happen, though they could not have biological children together. On Epsilon 7, the original settlement had become a city of 50,000, split almost evenly between humans and Krell. The Great Hall where the peace treaty had been signed was now a museum. Children of both species visited on school trips to learn about the war and how it ended. The most popular exhibit in the museum showed footage from that day 20 years ago. Visitors could watch a young human captain pick up an injured Krell cub from a battlefield. They could see him carry the small alien to safety, despite the protests of his own soldiers. The video never failed to make people stop and think. But peace, however strong, was never guaranteed. There were still extremists on both sides who rejected cooperation. Some humans believed their species should dominate the galaxy alone. Some Krell thought peace had made their people soft and weak. These groups were small, but they were loud and sometimes dangerous. The joint human and Krell government knew they needed to do something to strengthen the peace. They needed a symbol that would show both species working together as equals toward a common goal. They needed something that would inspire the next generation and remind the older ones why peace mattered. The answer came from an unexpected place. A team of scientists, both human and Krell, had discovered something amazing in deep space. They found evidence of ancient ruins on a planet in unexplored territory. The ruins seemed to be from a civilization that existed millions of years before either humans or Krell developed space travel. "We should mount an expedition," proposed Dr. Lisa Wong, a human archaeologist. "A joint mission to explore these ruins. Think what we could learn." "And think what it would mean," added Carten, a Krell scientist. "Both our species working together to explore the unknown. Not competing, not fighting, but cooperating to discover secrets of the past." The idea caught fire quickly. Both governments approved funding for the mission. They would build a ship designed by both species, crewed by both species, dedicated to exploration rather than war. It would be a symbol of what peace could accomplish. The ship took 3 years to build. Human and Krell engineers worked side by side in orbital shipyards. The vessel combined the best of both technologies. It had Krell structural strength and human advanced systems. It was beautiful, powerful, and completely unarmed. This ship was not built for war. When it came time to name the vessel, there was much debate. Finally, they settled on a name that honored the moment that started everything. The ship would be called Small New Stone in both English and Krell. It would carry Spike's name into the stars. Choosing the captain and crew was equally important. They needed someone who understood both cultures, who had the respect of both species, who embodied the spirit of cooperation that made peace possible. The choice was obvious to everyone. Captain Sarah Hughes was appointed to command. She was human, born the same year the peace treaty was signed. She had grown up in the mixed settlement on Epsilon 7. Her childhood best friend, a Krell cub named Tariq. She spoke both languages fluently and understood both cultures deeply. Her first officer would be Krellick, the Small New Stone himself. Spike had grown into a respected leader, known throughout both civilizations. The cub that Jake Morrison had saved was now a powerful adult, scarred from a climbing accident but still strong and wise. There was poetry in having Spike serve on a ship named after him, exploring the unknown with the same curiosity he had shown as a child. The crew of 200 was split evenly between humans and Krell. They were scientists, engineers, doctors, and explorers. They were the best both species had to offer, and they chose to work together. On the day of the launch, Jake Morrison stood in the crowd watching the ceremony. He was old now, his hair white, his back bent with age. But his eyes were still sharp and his mind was still clear. Beside him stood Kraldar, equally aged but still commanding respect. "Your child commands a starship," Jake said with pride. "Our child," Kraldar corrected gently. "Small New Stone was raised by both our peoples. That is why this works. We share everything now. Our young, our future, our dreams of what could be." Admiral Ross was there too, retired but still honored by both species. She gave a short speech about the importance of the mission. "This ship represents our hopes," she said. "It shows that humans and Krell can do more together than either could do alone. It proves that peace is not just the absence of war. Peace is building something better together." Karvik spoke next. The old war leader was ancient now, his voice thin but still carrying authority. 20 years ago, I was ready to fight until death. I believed peace was impossible. Then a human showed me I was wrong. Jake Morrison chose mercy when he could have chosen violence. That choice saved us all. Today we honor that choice by reaching for the stars together. The crowd cheered, a sound that mixed human voices and Krell clicking in harmony. The two species had learned to make music together, literally and figuratively. Sarah Hughes stood at the podium, young and confident. "This ship and its crew will explore the unknown," she said. "We will discover things no one has seen before. We will face challenges neither species could handle alone, but we will face them together as we have learned to do. We carry the hopes of two civilizations into the darkness. We will not fail them." Spike stood beside her, tall and proud. 20 years ago, I was a hurt cub on a battlefield. A human chose to save me when logic said to leave me or kill me. That human, Jake Morrison, taught me that kindness is stronger than hate, that mercy can end wars better than weapons. Today I serve on a ship named for that moment. I serve with humans and Krell who see each other as equals and friends. This is the future we were meant to have. The ship launched to thunderous applause. It rose into the sky, beautiful and graceful, carrying its mixed crew toward the unknown. For 3 months they traveled to the distant planet where the ruins waited. During the journey, the crew bonded in ways that strengthened the peace back home. Human and Krell crew members shared meals, told stories, celebrated holidays from both cultures. They learned that despite their differences, they had more in common than they ever realized. When they reached the planet with the ancient ruins, what they found amazed everyone. The ruins were massive, clearly built by a civilization far more advanced than humans or Krell. But more interesting were the images carved into the ancient walls. The carvings showed 2 different species working together. One species was tall and strong, built like predators. The other was smaller and softer, using tools and technology. The images showed them building together, exploring together, achieving things neither could do alone. "Do you see?" asked Dr. Lisa Wong, studying the carvings. "This ancient civilization understood what we are just learning. That different species working together can achieve greatness. Maybe we are not the first to discover this truth. Maybe we are just the latest." The discovery made news across both civilizations. Here was proof from millions of years ago that cooperation between different species was possible and powerful. The message from the past spoke to the present. The mission continued for 2 years, exploring the ruins and learning their secrets. The crew sent back discoveries that advanced both human and Krell science by decades. They proved that the peace dividend was real, that cooperation made both species stronger and smarter. When the small new stone finally returned home, it was greeted as a triumph. The mission had been a complete success. More importantly, it had shown the galaxy what humans and Krell could accomplish together. Jake Morrison watched the return ceremony from his home on Epsilon 7. He was too old to attend in person now, but he watched on video with Kraldar beside him. Both old warriors had tears in their eyes as they watched Spike and Sarah step off the ship to cheering crowds. "We did it," Jake said quietly. "We really did it." "You did it," Kraldar replied. "You made the choice that started everything. You chose mercy over hate. One moment, one choice changed the future of 2 species." Jake shook his head. "No, we all did it. You brought medicine for your child when you could have attacked to get Spike back. Spike chose to trust humans when fear said to hate us. Amy, Helen, Danny, Leo, and everyone else who chose to give peace a chance. We all built this together." That night, Jake had a visitor. Spike came to see him, bringing a gift from the expedition. It was a small piece of carved stone from the ancient ruins, showing 2 species working together.